It's Thursday and today we are finally going to be making the little sloth that I created way back when we did Crafternoon Clash with Skein Spider. So let's get into tools and materials. Okay, let's talk tools and materials. So for today's little sloth, you're going to need 8 ply 100% acrylic yarn in a couple of different colors. So for our main sloth, you are going to need a main body color, a face color, and an eye color. And for those, I have got brown marble, hawthorn, and cream. And then for the little baby, I have some, I think it's called sun gold, and just a scrap amount of pink to add a little nose in afterwards. Now the baby is of course a completely optional piece here. You're also going to need a pair of 9mm safety eyes, a 3.5mm hook, pins and needles, scissors, and some stuffing. But that's it. A written version of today's pattern will be made available to my patrons and will also be made available on Etsy, and I will leave links to both in the description down below for anybody who is interested. Okay, so to start us off today, we are going to make the Mumma sloth, and we're going to start with the main body potato. So I'm going to grab my brown marble, which I will just be referring to as brown from this point onwards. And this is just a quick reminder that this is a complicated knots pattern, so I will be skipping over any of the easy stuff, and honestly, most of this pattern is pretty easy. And we're going to start at the top of the head with a magic ring of 6. Row 2 is 6 increases. And I do work invisible increases. And all that means is for the first stitch of my increase, I work through the front loop only. And then for the second stitch of the increase, I work through both loops. Now that's just a preference thing. I think it keeps the stitches more consistent with the rest of the single crochet, but you can use standard increases here if you prefer. Then row 3 is 6 repeats of a single crochet and then an increase. So there is our first one, and we're going to repeat that 5 more times around to bring our row up to 18 stitches. Now at this point I am going to start using a bobby pin to mark the last stitch of my row, just to make sure that I'm staying on track. So row 4 has a little bit of complexity to it. We're going to start with a single crochet, then 3 repeats of a single crochet and an increase. There's 1, and we're going to do that 2 more times. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, and increase. Then 4 single crochet across, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 3 repeats of an increase and a single crochet. So there's 1, increase, single crochet, there's 2, and increase, single crochet, that's 3. We have then just 1 stitch left in our round, and we're going to work a single crochet into it. That should leave you with 24 stitches in your round. Then the next 3 rows are just 24 single crochet around each for a combined total of 72 stitches. And there we go. So that's how we look at the end of row 7. We've got this little dome of a head. Row 8 is then 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then 6 decreases, and I am using invisible decreases, but standard decreases are also fine for this pattern. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you'll see that that is like tucked in the jaw. That's the face. And then 6 single crochet back to the start of our round. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Row 9 starts with 3 single crochet, 3 single crochet all into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, then 8 single crochet across the front. 2, 7 and 8. 3 single crochet all into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochet, and an increase into our final stitch. And you should have 23 stitches in your round at this point. Row 10 starts with 4 single crochet, then an increase, 10 single crochet across the front. 1, 2, 8, 9, and 10. An increase, 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Another increase, and then a single crochet into the final stitch of our round. And that should leave you with 26 stitches around the opening. And the next 4 rows are each 26 single crochet around for a combined total of 104 stitches. There we are at the end of row 14. Where are you going, buddy? You need some help? How's that? You did a good job. Okay, so row 15, it starts with 9 single crochet, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, then 3 repeats of a decrease and a single crochet. So that's 1, decrease and a single crochet. That's 2, decrease and a single crochet, and that's 3. Then it is just 8 single crochet back to the start of our round, leaving us with 23 stitches in our round. Row 16 is 2 single crochet, and then 5 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and a single crochet. So there's the first one, and we're going to do that 4 more times around. Leaving us with just 1 stitch in our round, and we're going to work a single crochet into it. And at this point we are down to 18 stitches, and we are going to stop and stuff. Now, don't forget to tear your stuffing up, and you are going to really pack it in. We do need her to be a fairly firmly stuffed potato. There we go, no lumps. And now we're just going to work the final 2 rows to close off the opening at the bottom. So row 17 is 6 repeats of a single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 12 stitches. And then row 18 is just 6 decreases to reduce us down to 6 stitches. 2, 5 and 6, and finish off. So we are left with a little opening at the base. I'm going to grab my remaining yarn and just pull it through the front loops only of each of those remaining stitches. Like so, and then pull it tight to close. Might end up a little bit pointy, but we're just going to grab that yarn and tuck it away down inside. Give it a little pat, pat, pat to flatten it out. And there is our Mumma Sloth base potato. So pop that to one side, and we're going to make some little arms. So once again, working in our brown, we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. And we're then going to work 3 repeats of a single crochet and an increase. So there's our first one. We're going to do 2 more of those around to get us up to 9 stitches. Row 3 is then just 9 single crochet around. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Row 4 is a decrease, and then 7 single crochet around to bring our row down to 8. Row 5 is just 8 single crochet around. Row 6 is a decrease, and then 6 single crochet. And then row 7 is a decrease, and then 5 single crochet. So by the end of row 7, your round should have just 6 stitches left in it, and it should look like this. And I am going to stuff just the tiniest bit of stuffing down into the bottom part of the arm, but we're not stuffing all the way up to the opening. There we go. So then all this piece needs is 3 rows of 6 single crochet for a combined total of 18 stitches. Like so, and finish off. Okay, so that is the first little arm, and you do need 2 of those. And it's the fastest those will ever move. And then we need to make the legs. Now the legs are basically exactly the same as the arms, they're just a couple of rows shorter. So I'll pop the pattern on the screen for you now and we'll just whip those up. So there's leg number 1 and leg number 2. These pieces, once again, are exactly the same as the arms, they're just a couple of rows shorter. Pop all of those to one side, and next we're going to make the little face piece. So you're going to need your cream for this, or white. White would work just as well. And we're going to start by chaining 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to turn, and starting at the second chain from our hook, work 5 single crochet back across. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chain 1 and turn. We're going to work an increase, a single crochet, an increase, a single crochet, and in the last stitch of this row we are going to work an increase, but we are going to be changing to our dark brown in that stitch. Now you do not have to work these as color changes if you don't want to. You can always stitch this detail on afterwards, but it saves you a little bit of work if you do it as color changes, so we may as well, right? So to work a color change in the second stitch of our increase, we first work the first stitch of our increase. Then we insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop of our old color, hold it out of the way on the side facing towards us because technically our work is back to front at the moment. Grab the color we're changing to, pinch it at the base of the stitch on the side facing us, yarn over and pull through the loops on our hook. And just give everything a little like tug and jostle to lock it into place. And you can tie these two ends together if you want to just really lock it in. But please note, I am not trimming off my cream at this point because we will be needing it again. This dark brown is just a temporary trend. So in our dark brown, we are going to chain 1 and turn. The color change got a little bit sloppy there, but I think you got the gist. So in our dark brown, we are going to work an increase. We're then going to work 2 single crochet in our dark brown, changing back to our cream in the second stitch. So there's 1. And the second one's going to be our color change. Now I'm going to show you color changes again, just because this time the right side of the work is facing us, so it looks a little different from the first time. So we insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop of our old color, hold that color out of the way along the back of the work, grab our cream from where it was attached before, pull it up the back of the work and pinch it at the base of the stitch, and yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook, tug the tails to scooch the stitch down into position, leaving us with a brown single crochet with our cream on the hook ready to go. So in our cream, we are going to work 2 single crochet, changing back to our brown in the second stitch. Like so. Then in our dark brown, we're going to work 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. and then an increase, changing back to our cream. So first stitch of the increase is worked as normal, and the second stitch changes color. And we are done with the brown now. So chain 1 and turn. Okay, so for the final row of this little face piece, we are going to be working in the front loops only. So those are the loops of the stitches on the side facing us. So it doesn't matter that the wrong side of the work is facing us. These are still the front loops because they are currently the ones facing us. And I'm going to work 4 single crochet across. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that leaves the back loop nice and straight on the other side of the work, giving you like kind of a nice clean line. Then 2 single crochet working through both loops, 1 and 2, and then 4 single crochet in the front loops only to the end of the row. 3 and 4, and finish off. Now at this point you can trim off any additional long tails you might have accrued along the way. And there is our little sloth face. So if you grab your safety eyes at this point, if you're going to use them, you can of course just embroider eyes on. And we're going to position our safety eyes now. So we want the inner... So we want one dark brown stitch to be visible between the edge of the eye and the cream. So I'm going to come along to this second stitch and pop my eye in down over the top of that free loop. So it sits half on the cream, half on the dark brown, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So it's basically 2 stitches in. Pop it down through that front loop. And that's where my eyes are going to go. And I'm just going to snap the backs on just through this one piece. There we go. Now, pop that to one side. We do technically have all of the pieces for our mother sloth now, so let's just really quickly whip up her baby. Now, for her baby today, I'm going to be using this lovely caramel color. Those baby sloths are kind of like orange and fuzzy. And this piece starts pretty basic. So we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. 1, like so. Then row 2, we're going to work 2 repeats of a single crochet, an increase, and a single crochet. There's 1, there's 2, bringing us up to 8 stitches in our round. Then rows 3 and 4 are both 8 single crochet around for a combined total of 16 stitches. Row 5 is 2 repeats of 2 single crochet, and then a decrease. There's 1, 2 single crochet, and a decrease. That's 2. Now, row 6 is a little bit of a nonsense row because we have to build 2 little like flappy bits to simulate arms. So if you bear with me here, we're going to start by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like so. We're then going to turn and starting in the second chain from our hook, work 4 slip stitches down those chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there is the first little arm. So going back to working into the main stitches of our round, we're going to work 2 single crochet, 2, then we're going to make the second arm. So chain 5 again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, turn, start in the second chain from your hook and work 4 slip stitches back down to the base. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, going back to working in the main stitches of our round, we're going to work the 4 single crochet back to the start of our row. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so that is what we currently look like. You're trusting the process yet? Row 7 is then just 6 single crochet around, but you're going to have to fold the arm forward to the outside, working your single crochet behind it to make sure that it like pops out to the correct side. That's 1 and 2 between the arms. Fold the second arm forward. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so in row 8, we're actually making the back legs because the little sloths, they have 4 legs. So we're going to do basically the same thing again. So we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 slip stitches down the chains. 2 single crochet into the main stitches of the round. 1, 2, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 slip stitches down the chains. And then 4 single crochet back around to the start of the row. 1, 2, 3, 4, and finish off. Now we're going to take a brief moment to stuff just a little bit of stuffing down inside. This is a little piece that really only makes sense in the context of the overall sloth. I don't think it really necessarily reads on its own. But when it's all sewn together, I think it comes out okay. Then we're going to take our remaining tail here and weave it through the front loops only of the 6 remaining stitches in our main round. So that's skipping those little legs. Okay, there we go. This little nightmare creature is going to be our baby sloth. And technically we have made all of the pieces for today's creation. Now before we start actually attaching things, these pieces here all need a couple of extra details sewn onto them. So we're going to start with the hands and feet. So I want you to thread your needle with a little bit of cream. And all we're going to do for each one of these is threading our needle out through that starting magic ring to get us started. Stitch on, basically it's a little V. So I'm going to go up 2 rows, off to 1 diagonal. And then leave a stitch in between, possibly up to 2 stitches, but 1 stitch in between should do it. Up and around and back down once again through the magic ring. Now, if these claws aren't coming out like chunky enough for you, you can repeat that so that you've got 2 strands going over each of those stitches. Then when you're done, out and through on the underside. So those are the claws. I'm going to repeat that for the other arm and both legs. There we go. That's what those claws look like. So that's those done. And now we just have the little baby. And I just want to say that I didn't end up stitching any additional details on the one that I've actually used on my prototype here. However, I think just to give us a little bit of extra posability on this little fella, a little face could be cute. So threading our needle with pink, just a little scrap of pink should do. I'm going to identify the little face and I'm just going to stitch over the top stitch of the magic ring. Top being decided by where the arms and legs are sitting, not by any other thing. Until we have just a little pink round nose. Three or 4 stitches ought to do it. Then if you're feeling really adventurous, you can grab a little bit of your dark brown, or some black if you have it around, but I have dark brown here today, and just give a tiny peeper to each side of the nose. You know what? I don't even know if I'm aiming for open or shut here. I'll let the yarn decide and then we'll just roll with it. So I'm good at many things. Embroidery is one I'm working on. Okay, I think that's a little open eye. Now we'll find out if it's winking. Nope, 2 little open eyes. Go team. Okay, and there is the face of my little sloth. So with that all done, we can now finally start assembling. And we're going to start by taking the face piece and finding the face of the potato. So this little dip runs directly under the chin. I'm going to line up my starting chain with the underside of that chin. Being sure if you've got long eye stems like I do, they can poke down into the body. Even if they're not snapping in, this will help them sit flat. Just wherever they sit is fine. Where's my tortoise? There's my tortoise. I'm just going to pin that down where it's sitting. You can see it's kind of bulging out a little bit at the top. That's okay. Sewing will fix that. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that position. So now I'm going to use some cream and I'm going to sew around the edge of this piece. There we go. So as you can see here, we've got a little nose and a tiny little mouth that go kind of between the eyes there. I'm just going to add those right now using my body color. You could once again also just use black for this if you prefer, or the dark brown would also work. But I think the dark brown blends in too much with the eye patches. And we only want the tiniest little mouth. There we go. So there's our tiny little face. And next up, we kind of have to make a decision as to where we want to attach the baby. So for our original here, I attached it directly to the chest and tucked up all of the limbs to be hidden by the arms. But this little baby can also cling to the back or the head or the side. And I think for today, I am going to have it in a different position to this one here. So I think today I'm going to have the baby clinging to the mama's back. Let's try here. So you will have to wrangle each of the arms into position individually so that they're not twisted, just because that's the kind of piece that they are. There we go. So I think that's where I want the baby to go. And the reason we have to decide this now before we put the arms on is, I would think obvious. If you're trying to put the baby on, like attached to the chest, then the arms need to go on afterwards. Because I'm going to put mine on the back like that, I actually need to do the arms first, just in case this little hand needs to be on top of the arm. So it's just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to grab my arms next. I'm going to flatten the opening at the base of them and line the top corner up with roughly the edge of the face, a little bit of an angle, and just curve them around onto her tummy. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Unpin the little baby paw and it will go on top. But for now, it just needs to be like all the way over there. So with the top paws in place, we can then grab the legs, once again flattening the opening of them, lining them up on the body so that they touch the ground. Once again, pinning down that open edge and curving them towards the tummy. Okay, so when I like how they look, I'm going to make sure she sits flat, and she does. And then I'm going to take my body color yarn here and I'm going to sew on the arms and legs. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of our caramel and sew the baby into position. Now, as I mentioned before, the order you do those two things in is going to be entirely dependent on where you want to put that baby, or if you want to have a baby at all. And there is our finished little sloth. Okay, bye.